Hello everybody, my name is Daulton Nelson, and I thought I'd give my thoughts on Serious Sam 2. Serious Sam 2 is a first-person shooter game made by Croatian independent developer Croteam, who is famous for their Serious Sam franchise, the Talos Principle, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Like, they've done some stuff for the community. So, over the past couple years, they've been kind of becoming a favorite developer of mine. I enjoy a lot of their games, especially the Serious Sam games, which are really very fast-paced, usually very action-packed. They usually require the player to use a lot of skill in order to finish these games. They're very action-packed, very almost kind of macho in a way, but still accessible to anybody who would like to pick up and play. I really love these games. If I were to give the games a score, because I had played them 2 years ago, back when I wasn't giving things scores or just like saying what's better and what's not for me, I would give Serious Sam HD, the first encounter, a 10 out of 10. Serious Sam HD, the second encounter, a 9 out of 10. Serious Sam 3 BFE, a 6 out of 10 on the 360, and something better on the PC. I've been playing the PC port of Serious Sam 3, and it's already better, so maybe I'll update that one day. But my exposure from Serious Sam has come from the Serious Sam collection on the Xbox 360, so I haven't really played the classic Serious Sam first encounter and second encounter, the older ones released in 2001, only the remakes that came out later. So my frame of reference might be a little skewed towards maybe games that are better than the original, but that's what I'm going off of for this thoughts video. The Serious Sam franchise for me has a very high replay value. There are a lot of secrets in these games, and the more you play, the more you grow. So you can go around these levels and kind of memorize like enemy placement, ammo placement, and get really good and really better, and it's one of those games that gets so good with repetition. That's why I really love these games a lot. They're always good to come back and play. What I usually expect from a Serious Sam game is usually fast skill-based shooting, large groups of enemies, light humor with some sci-fi, and some beautiful environments based off of notable real-life world locations. Sometimes they're historic, like in the first two games, and sometimes they're recent, like in Serious Sam 3, but they're usually very beautiful. Croteam does a great job with shaders and modeling and bump mapping. That it's honestly astounding, even for the HD games, which are, I think, 2009 games. They still look really, really good. So going back to Serious Sam 2, I was interested to play this not only because it wasn't included in the Serious Sam collection, it was the only main series title that was not included, but because I had heard that this game had gone in a different direction from previous Serious Sam games. It was a lot more silly, cartoony, a little bit different gameplay-wise, so I was very interested. Plus that 25-year anniversary sale that Croteam had allowed me to buy this game really cheap. So that's why I had played this game. So starting off talking about Serious Sam 2, I wanted to talk about the most obvious change between Serious Sam 2 and Serious Sam First Encounter and Second Encounter. And that was the very cartoony direction that Croteam went in. I can see some influence from like Jak and Daxter or maybe Ratchet and Clank. The style is very reminiscent of those games, I feel. The game was definitely more colorful, but the models were definitely more jaggy as well. You could see edges coming off from models. I don't think the models really aged that well from today. The animations in the game look a bit stiff and rigid. Nothing really looked natural. Environments looked nice though. The area beyond the boundaries were detailed, as if they were like a world beyond that boundary. That was really cool to see. Most of the environments of this game, I was a little shocked to see, was that most of the environments weren't really like based off of historic locations or even real-world locations like previous Serious Sam games. There are some original environments that Croteam uses here, and I think it's pretty interesting. There is some inspirations here and there. There are like obelisks in like Mdigbo, or Chi Fang is, I think it's a parody of China, or at least Hong Kong. So there are influences here and there, but these aren't the actual settings. Croteam are trying to pass these off as completely original settings within this universe. which I think is an interesting direction from them since they normally don't go there. As I said, a lot of the models do not hold up, especially the NPC models, which are really ugly. Weapon designs and enemy designs are really cool. All of the weapons from the previous games got a significant upgrade, or maybe upgrade's the wrong word, but they got a significant redesign, and they all kind of look different now. And the same with the enemies. In fact, most of the enemies from the first 2 games don't really come back in Serious Sam 2, and in fact, it's different enemy types, which I really liked. It made the game really unique and kind of kept me on my toes as I was progressing more into the game and running into even newer enemy types. I thought that was pretty interesting. But there are some returning enemies, like kamikazes and harpies were in the game. I think there's one more, but I can't remember right now. I like the direction that Croteam took with the graphics and the style of this game. I thought that it was unique and that it was something that was purely them. I know people who are fans of the Serious Sam games do not like this kind of style because it is quite a departure from the more kind of realistic kind of style that they usually boast within their games. But I would rather Croteam make a game that they would want to make rather than a game that panders to the nostalgic. So I think that the direction that they took here was pretty cool and definitely interesting. Now, in terms of story, Serious Sam 2's story is actually the most complex of the bunch, but it is pretty simple to follow, so it's nothing like an artsy kind of story or anything like that. It's pretty simple. What it is that in the beginning of the game, Sam is abducted by these aliens, and he's told to, and these aliens are trying to help him defeat Mental, the main antagonist of the game. He's told to collect 5 parts of a medallion in order to hurt Mental, the main antagonist of the game. And then once he does that, he goes to the final planet, or the moon of the planet, and then the final planet, and then goes head-to-head, or tries to go head-to-head with the final antagonist of the series. The game has a lot more humor in it than the previous Serious Sam games did, for sure. I think some of it worked, but a lot of it didn't work. There was a lot of jokes that were really awkward, or I hate to use cringy, but they were. Some of them were just bad. For example, the very first 2 secrets that I found within Serious Sam 2 were in the guise of a fart joke and a sex joke. And then there was a joke later on in the game about women being attracted to shiny things and not being able to help themselves. So a lot of these jokes just really do not work and come off. They really come off kind of like macho, but in a bad way. Sam Sirius Stone, the main protagonist of the game, actually has kind of a character. He has more lines and reacts to things, so he definitely has more of a character than he does just like a one-liner machine that he usually is in the other games. But in this game, I think he kind of comes off as a little bit of an asshole. If not that, he kind of comes off as just non-relatable. He says a lot of rude things sometimes, or he'll just kind of react in this kind of rude way. I didn't really like how they kind of treated Sam's character in the game. Natrixa also received an upgrade. In this game, she now has a voice, voiced by Ellie Fairman. She's pretty cool, but she gives off a lot of simple instructions that are not needed. They're unnecessary. For example, she'll say, go down this hallway, when the hallway is the only thing that you need to go down, or pick up this weapon when the weapon is the only thing in the room and the room is closed off. I just feel like players can kind of figure it out by themselves and that they really don't need Natriska to hold their hand. I like the little twist that they had later on in the game. There's a little twist with the aliens that abduct him and what they kind of really are. You'll know it when you see it. I thought it was pretty cool. It was a little funny. So Serious Sam 2 at 7 worlds and 42 levels is probably the most dense Serious Sam game so far. It has a lot of content, and while the game's actual playtime for me kind of matched a single playtime for any of the other campaigns, it felt longer. In fact, it kind of dragged a little bit, with some of the missions being very short and kind of unnecessary, almost kind of gimmick missions. but overall, there's a lot more content here to go around. I didn't like how some of the bosses within this game had kind of like gimmicks behind them. So, Serious Sam, the Second Encounter, which is my favorite Serious Sam game of them all, their boss fights worked very simply, where you would find the boss, you would be right in front of the boss, and the only way to fight this boss would be to shoot them and to dodge their attacks. It was that simple, and it harked back to the very simple gameplay that Serious Sam kind of homes here. So I felt that trying to throw these like little gimmicks, for example, like you could only damage this boss with like arrows or hitting a gong, or you had to run into a certain area before you could damage this boss. I didn't really like that. I thought it was a departure from the very cool boss fights from the Second Encounter, and that it made a lot of the boss fights kind of not memorable, in my opinion. The final boss within Serious Sam 2, however, is pretty cool. Once you get to it, you'll like it. I really liked it. I thought it was cool. So moving on to sound, I would like to first talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is done again by Damian Mravnak. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but he's been a composer for all of the Serious Sam games thus far, and I think Talos Principle as well as most of the third-party Serious Sam games as well. He's done a lot of the scores for those, and this is definitely a more upbeat approach to what he usually does within Serious Sam games. I thought it was a lot more colorful. There were some vocals that were implemented into some of the tracks here, which I thought was pretty cool. They're also pretty diverse, as with 7 worlds, you have 7 different settings. So he tries to pull off 7 different kinds of feels, and I really like some of the tracks that he has. One of the highlights was the very fast-paced tracks like Road to Ursel Fight, Digbo Extra, Serious Downtown Fight, and Mental Institution. And some of the more relaxing tracks include Digbo River Dance, the Sewers track, and his silliest track yet that I've heard from him, Giant Junkyard. It's so cartoony. You should probably listen to this track just because it's so silly, especially in the context of what Mravnak usually does. Going on to the sound effects, some of the sound effects I liked, but there was a lot that were really reused throughout the game, and I thought that was kind of distracting. And I should probably, I don't mind if they're reused by the enemies, but sometimes they would be reused for certain, like, cutscenes where it just was distracting, or certain lines from Serious Sam would be used, be reused over and over again whenever you would pick up a certain weapon, so that was a little distracting. The sound effect quality could drop at times too. I could definitely hear some white noise or some of the noise floor in some of the sound effects. So they haven't aged really well in terms of the technology we have now. Any character within Serious Sam 2 that is not Sam Stone or Natriska is voiced, or it sounds like they're voiced by the dev team in this very heavy accent. And some of the line deliveries from them can be a little awkward, but I don't really expect, if the devs are trying to voice these lines, I don't really expect grade A voice acting or anything. I think Croteam just wanted to save a little bit more budget and put it somewhere else in the game. I mentioned Ellie Fairman as Natriska. I thought she was pretty cool. I think she played the role perfectly. However, John J. Dick, who voices Sam Stone throughout all of the Serious Sam games, I think he kind of suffers from the Mario effect in this game a little bit. And so what the Mario effect is when a voice actor is good in small doses for a character, but when they're given more lines, some of their deliveries come off as awkward or maybe a little bad at times, or just not fitting right. And it definitely happens here. There are a couple times when John Dick's voice lines crack a little bit, or his tone doesn't really fit the tone of the scene sometimes. And maybe some of that is attributed to maybe the direction of whoever gave him the lines. But I don't think that giving Sam more lines in the game was exactly a good idea either. The worst part of this game for me is definitely the sound mixing. In previous Serious Sam games, the sound effects from the enemies would be very clear and be heard above the music, and that really helped when enemies were close to you, or kind of gauging how close enemies were to you if they weren't right in front of your eyesight. So it could really help you with that environmental awareness that I really like that the other Serious Sam games kind of require you to have. But this game doesn't have that. The enemies' sound effects in this game are very quiet. They're very hidden and buried behind the music. And even when I turned down the music and up the sound effects, it still was a bit of a challenge to kind of hear them. So that was really disappointing. That sound mixing is usually the best part of the games for me, so it's very disappointing to not see it here in Serious Sam 2. So let's move on to the gameplay. Serious Sam 2's gameplay has differences from the other three that make it unique, but in my opinion, inferior in a way. First, all weapons have a higher ammo limit. The lower level shotgun in the game, the automatic shotgun, has received a significant upgrade to its fire rate, making it very powerful within Serious Sam 2. There is one new weapon introduced into this game that wasn't in first encounter or second encounter. That was the weapon Clodovic, which is this parrot that can home onto enemies and blow up, kind of like a suicide parrot. And while I thought it was cool, the idea was cool, I didn't really end up using it that much. Maybe on more playthroughs I'll find more uses for the weapon. Health now can go past 100 no matter what you collect, so previously if there was a 50 health item and you had 100 health you couldn't collect it, but in this game you can. So now the max health is really kind of like, it's definitely 200 as opposed to finding secrets in order to get it to 200. So that makes the game a little bit easier. Serious Sam 2 also has a physics engine that it kind of uses throughout the game, but it's nothing that's really worth celebrating, really. Like, there were a lot of moments when certain objects that were affected by physics would just kind of wiggle and bug out, or sometimes when I tried to pick up items, the items would be shoved right in my face. So the entire screen would be like a texture just shoved right into my face, and I couldn't see where I was going. So I definitely thought the physics engine could have been fixed, but given that they didn't really have a heavy emphasis on physics in Serious Sam 3, I just think Croteam probably ditched the attempt. There's a bug in this game when quitting out of the level Ursel Gardens that will it'll corrupt your save file. And so I luckily got my save file back, but just be careful when you're playing because it seems like it'll always corrupt your save file according to some of the research I did on some forums. The slope detection in this game was a little sensitive for both me and the AI. There were several moments when we would be like climbing up buildings when we weren't trying to or completely on accident. The AI specifically would get stuck on buildings, just kind of trying to run at me. It was a little silly. Now, I don't know if this was a problem with my laptop or not, but this doesn't happen to me in other first-person shooters on the PC. And that's that looking around for me, sometimes it would like snap around or just jump around. Other times it would kind of dip the frame rate a little bit, so that was kind of odd. But I don't know if that's the game's fault or my fault, so I won't really I don't really think about that when thinking about the final score of the game. The game's first world, Mdigbo, felt like it was a slog to play, and I get why. I mean, it's the beginning of the game, so they want to kind of like inch you into the more extreme moments that the game has, but I felt that this was a very bad start, especially with like the weird voice acting and the ugly models. It really felt like it dragged, and it was not a good start to Serious Sam 2. Luckily, from the second world on, the game picked up a lot more and got a lot more fun the further I went on to the game. So thankfully, the second half of this game really picks up a lot more than that first world. Vehicles are introduced into this game as well, like you can ride certain vehicles or UFOs, or like there's a spiky ball you can ride or a dinosaur. And they're a bit overpowered. I didn't have a problem with the overpoweredness of them, but most of the vehicles felt like some sort of variation on the Ghost from Halo Combat Evolved. I wonder if Croteam felt a little inspired by that game when they were making this game. There are also turret sections within Serious Sam 2, and I didn't really like these because for me, a lot of the appeal for Serious Sam 2 comes from dodging attacks using your own skill. So kind of taking away the movement within shooting really kind of took the appeal away from me, and these moments just kind of felt stagnant, but they are brief, so they will be over quickly. Points in Serious Sam 2 became a lot more prominent in this game because gaining 10,000 points nets you a life, which is new, and I think is exclusive to this game. And what lives do is dying while having life brings you back to the last checkpoint, which there are checkpoints in this game that you can spawn from. They also added treasure throughout the game that you can pick up, gain you even more points. And sometimes the life system could be a bit helpful for me. For example, I could have quick saved at like 2 armor and 10 health, but if I died, I would suddenly get 100 armor, 200 health. But other times, I just felt like it was just kind of unnecessary. I like the quick saving feature a lot more than I do the life feature. And kind of closing up the gameplay section, I felt that Serious Sam 2 felt the easiest to play out of the bunch because of the changes that they had done to a lot of the stuff here. And I think that's a good thing because it helps entry-level players get into the game more. So maybe the games that I like might be games that other people might not like because they're a bit more difficult. So there's a lower level of entry, and I think that's good. So to wrap up my thoughts on Serious Sam 2, I like the game, but it's definitely not my favorite of this main series. In fact, I think it's my least favorite so far. The bad humor, change in sound mixing, the slow start of the game, they were all Serious Sam 2's lowest points, while the highest points were definitely the second half in the game, where things picked up a lot more, and there was humor that worked a little bit more in the second half, and the game kind of took itself a little bit more seriously. Plus that kind of twist, as well as some of the other story beats that happened that I think really carried the second half of this game. I think the direction that Croteam took with Serious Sam 2 makes it unique within its franchise, and I think that's a great thing. That being said, I can only recommend this game to people who have played First Encounter, Second Encounter, and Serious Sam 3 BFE first, as I think those games are a little bit more fun than this. I think if you played those games and are still curious as to why this game is a little bit different, I say go for it, because I still recommend this game. Overall, I'd give this game a final score of a 6 out of 10. It was above average, but I think it was just that. I don't think it really warrants anything more special. The only thing that I strongly recommend you do if you play this game is to go into your profile settings, then go into your advanced controls and set always pick items up to no. What this setting makes you do is, if it's set to yes, it'll make you pick up items even though you're full on the item as is. So say if you have 1,000 bullets and you run into more bullets, you'll pick up those bullets. So setting it to no will still keep those bullets there and will help you out tremendously. For some odd reason, it's set to yes on default, so make sure to set it to no before you start playing this game. After playing this game, I am a little bit more excited for Serious Sam 4, Planet Badass. It sounds like it will have a mixture of things from all the titles within the series thus far, while having unique aspects to it as well. So I am thankful that I played this game. I am thankful that Croteam made this game, and I think it is pretty unique. I think you should give it a shot. But I think you should give this entire series a shot as well. So that is my conclusion on my thoughts on Serious Sam 2. If you like this, I don't really care if you like or subscribe or whatever. That's not really why I'm doing this. But if you could check out my social media accounts and my online portfolio, which should be in the description, that'd be pretty awesome. So thank you very much and have a nice day.